You tell yourself you're just browsing. You walk through the store with your hands in your pockets, telling yourself you don't need anything today. 20 minutes later, you're standing at the counter holding 3 things you never planned to buy. Nobody forced you. Nobody lied to you. So what actually happened in your head between the door and the counter? The easy answer is that you changed your mind. The real answer is stranger than that. Someone, somewhere along that path through the store, knew exactly how to move you. Not your wallet first, you first. There's a skill most people walk past every single day without ever naming it. Persuasion. It hides inside sales pitches, marketing emails, political speeches, even a friend talking you into staying 5 more minutes at a party you wanted to leave an hour ago. And here's the part most people never stop to consider. Whoever holds that skill holds something close to the steering wheel of other people's lives. Their choices, their money, sometimes their entire direction. That isn't an exaggeration. That's simply what persuasion does when it works. So why does it work? Why can a stranger talk to you for 10 minutes and walk away with your signature on a contract you weren't planning to sign that morning? To answer that, you have to go back further than sales training. You have to go back to your ancestors. For most of human history, there was no internet, no advertising, no marketing department. There was a small group of people deciding together whether to move camp, whether to trust a stranger from another tribe, whether to risk a hunt. And inside every one of those groups, someone usually had more sway than the rest. Not always the strongest person, not always the smartest, usually the one who could make the group feel something together and move toward it. That ability never disappeared, it just changed clothes. It went from a voice around a fire to a voice in a boardroom, a voice in an ad, a voice on a screen in your pocket. In the 1980s, a psychologist named Robert Cialdini decided to study persuasion seriously, and not just from a textbook. He took jobs in sales, fundraising, and advertising so he could watch professional persuaders work from the inside. What he found became one of the most cited frameworks in modern psychology. People say yes to requests for a small, repeatable set of reasons. They feel they owe something back after receiving a favor. They follow what looks popular. They trust people who present themselves as authorities. They agree more easily with people they like, and they move faster when something feels limited, urgent, or about to disappear. Notice what's missing from that list. Almost none of it is about facts. It's about feeling. A countdown timer on a checkout page doesn't make the product better. It makes you feel like you might lose something if you hesitate. That feeling, not the product itself, is what gets your hand moving toward your wallet. You've probably felt every one of those 6 pulls without ever naming them. A waiter who brings a free dessert before asking if you want anything else. Product page showing 47 people bought this in the last hour. Stranger online listing 3 professional titles before making a pitch. A coworker you happen to like asking for a small favor you'd normally turn down. None of these change what's actually true about the offer sitting in front of you. They only change how it feels to say yes to it, which raises an uncomfortable question. If feeling is doing most of the work, what is your logic actually doing in all of this? This is where the story gets stranger, and where one specific patient changed how scientists understood decision-making altogether. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio studied a man he referred to as Elliot, who'd had a tumor removed from the front part of his brain. After the surgery, Elliot's intelligence tested completely normal. His memory worked fine. His reasoning worked fine, but his life fell apart anyway. He couldn't hold a job. He couldn't decide what to eat for lunch without endlessly listing every pro and con until the lunch hour had simply passed him by. He lost his marriage, his career, and most of his savings, all while scoring perfectly well on every logic test put in front of him. What Elliot had lost wasn't intelligence. It was the emotional signal that normally tags one option as this one, go. Damasio's research suggested decisions aren't actually built by cold logic at all. They're built by emotion first and explained by logic only afterward. Without that emotional flag, Elliot could see every option with perfect clarity and still couldn't choose between any of them. Logic by itself didn't produce decisions, it produced paralysis. That's not how most people picture their own minds working. Most people imagine themselves as the calm decision maker, weighing the facts, then arriving at a conclusion. The research kept pointing somewhere else entirely. Years later, psychologist Daniel Kahneman built an entire framework around this exact gap between what you feel and what you tell yourself afterward. He described two systems running inside every brain. One is fast, automatic, and emotional. It reacts before you've consciously thought anything at all. The other is slow, careful, and effortful. It checks the math, weighs the evidence, drafts the explanation. Here's the twist most people never expect. The fast emotional system usually decides first. The slow rational system mostly shows up afterward to justify what already happened a moment earlier. You don't feel annoyed because you reasoned your way into being annoyed. You feel annoyed first, and the reasons arrive a beat later, dressed up to look like the actual cause. So think about the last thing you bought that you hadn't planned to buy. There's a decent chance you can explain exactly why it made sense. Price was fair. You needed it eventually anyway. It was a smart move. Now ask yourself something harder. Did you feel the want first and build the explanation second? For most people, most of the time, the honest answer is yes. This isn't a flaw in your character, by the way. It's how every human brain is built. Evolution didn't design you to run a cost-benefit spreadsheet before every choice you make. It designed you to feel danger and move, feel desire and reach, feel belonging, and stay close to the group that keeps you safe. Logic arrived later as a layer added on top, genuinely useful for planning ahead, but a poor fit for being the actual engine behind most everyday decisions. Which is exactly why persuasion works as well as it does, and exactly why the same skill can be used in two very different directions. Look around you right now, today. The ad that interrupted your video probably opened with a feeling, not a fact, fear of missing out, the comfort of fitting in somewhere, the relief of finally solving a problem you've carried for years. Watch a political speech and notice how rarely it opens with statistics. It opens with a story, a threat, a promise, something built to land in your chest before it ever reaches your head. A good salesperson rarely starts by listing features. They start by finding what you already want and showing you the shortest possible path toward feeling it. Even the feed on your phone runs on this. The app isn't optimized to inform you. It's optimized to make you feel something strong enough that your thumb keeps moving. Outrage, curiosity, envy, comfort. Whichever feeling keeps you scrolling wins, regardless of whether it leaves you better off once you put the phone down. And it isn't limited to ads, speeches, and apps. It shows up in the small rooms of your own life too. Ask for a raise and watch how the conversation actually gets won or lost. Not on the spreadsheet of what you're worth, but on whether your manager feels confident, generous, or cornered in that moment. Argue with a partner about something small and notice how rarely the disagreement is actually settled by who has the better facts. It's usually settled by who manages to make the other person feel heard, or feel guilty, or feel tired enough to give in first. The lever is the same one Cialdini found in sales training rooms. It's just running quietly in your kitchen instead of a checkout line. None of this makes persuasion evil on its own. A doctor convincing a frightened patient to start treatment is using the exact same emotional pathway as someone convincing a stranger to wire away their savings. The tool is identical in both cases. What separates them is the intention sitting behind it, and whether the persuader actually has your interest in mind or only their own. That's the part worth sitting with for a moment. If you ever learn to write well, sell well, speak well, or simply talk in a way that moves people, you are not picking up some neutral, harmless skill. You're picking up access to the same lever that has been steering human behavior since long before written language existed. That access comes with weight. Whoever holds it can shape what other people buy, vote for, believe, or do next. That isn't a small thing to carry around, even when you're using it gently and with good intentions. So where does that leave you, whichever side of that exchange you happen to be standing on today? If you're the one trying to persuade someone, the honest version of this skill isn't about tricking the fast system into bypassing the slow one entirely. It's about understanding what someone actually feels and being clear about why your idea, product, or request genuinely deserves that feeling. People can usually sense the difference between being moved and being manipulated, even when they can't quite explain how they know it. If you're the one being persuaded, and at some point today, you will be, the useful habit isn't trying to delete emotion from your decisions altogether. You can't do that, and you wouldn't actually want to. The useful habit is noticing the feeling the moment it arrives, and asking one quiet question before acting on it. What do I actually want here, separate from what I'm being made to feel right now? That question won't make you immune to persuasion. Nobody gets to be immune to it. The wiring sits too deep for that. But it puts a small pause between the feeling and the action. And that pause is where your own judgment finally gets a turn to speak before your hand reaches for anything. Go back to that store, the one you walked into, telling yourself you only needed to look around. You didn't lie to yourself that day. You simply met someone or something that understood your fast system better than you were paying attention to it in that moment. Now you know what was actually happening underneath your own decision the whole time. And the next time you feel that pull, you'll at least know enough to stop and ask whose hand is really on the wheel.